Hi, so with patch 6.2.2 very definitely out now and the dust settled, we're not expecting anything new in Warlords of Draenor. The next time we get a significant content patch, it is expected to be the pre-Legion patch. So nothing new for Warlords of Draenor unless they've got something very cunning up their sleeve, which I really don't think they have. So I was going to do a roundup video, discuss all the features that Warlords of Draenor brought with it, both good and bad. I've been working on it and it turned into an absolute monster. So what I'm going to do instead is portion it out and do a section at a time. And I actually worked out if I do that in like reasonable sized videos, it should actually move in nicely with beta when we're getting a decent amount of beta stuff in, so that by the time I finish this series I'll be able to do beta videos into there depending on when I get into beta. But before I go on to the first Warlords of Draenor roundup, which is going to be on leveling this week, just to catch up on here with a bit of Legion news as well. There's nothing major, in fact it's a bit of non-news really. There was, a couple of weeks ago now, Heels vs Babyface, Asner, talking about is Warlords of Draenor going to be the last expansion? And he came across it from a fairly sensible angle in that, not that he's saying it's the last expansion, but if it were, they could easily tie up a few loose ends and they might base it on how many people get into it. Now, there's been a number of people doing YouTube videos, whether inspired by this or not, I don't know, basically going, oh yes, Legion's going to be the last expansion, and looking for the signs in the stars that this is the case. Well, Blizzard have basically said, and there's no reason to lie about this, that they are already working on the following expansion. So we can straight away knock that one on the head. It wouldn't make sense anyway. We know that MMOs survive and don't just keep going, but keep going with content patches with far, far fewer subscribers. Like not even a fraction of Blizzard's World of Warcraft subscriptions or players, and they still keep knocking things out. So I've no doubt that World of Warcraft will be going for a few years yet. And with smaller expansions, you've got to think that the next one will be a maximum of a year and a half, and it might be a bit less. It's going to keep going for a bit yet. Now, the statement itself does a couple of things. Once, it knocks on the head completely that there's not going to be another expansion after this. But two, it is actually really bizarre because if you think about it, so what they're saying is they're working on the expansion after Legion. And we know this sort of two-team thing. They've got these two teams and they work in parallel, and one works on one expansion and whilst one works on the other. So straight away we're sort of saying that anyone who was thinking maybe there is a sneaky Ruby Sanctum type boss just to throw as a bone before Legion comes out can probably forget about it, because presumably the team that worked on Warlords of Draenor is the one that's now working on the after Legion expansion. But the other thing is, we're a good 9 months away from Legion, and they're already working on the expansion after it. So this will mean that by the time Legion is sort of, when we're at the same point in Legion, when it's sort of done and dusted, they release the last content patch, and we're just on the sort of downhill slope towards that next expansion, it will be very advanced. It really does potentially mean that they could bring out expansions very, very quickly. They might actually want 12-month expansions, which I really wouldn't be in favour of that. I know a lot of people don't like this, the last sort of patch to be too long before the next expansion, and that would be bad as well. But yeah, 12 months. Not that they're saying that is their intention, but they will have been working on it for a very long time. By the time Legion's been out for a year, they'll have been working on the one after it, for nearly 2 years, perhaps even 2 years. But anyway, that's the situation. There is going to be an expansion after it. It is currently being worked on. So, on to what I'm going to talk about today. The first aspect of Warlords of Draenor that's brought with us, obviously, is the leveling. It's the first thing you do. So you start off going through the Dark Portal, and it goes on from there. Now, in MMOs in general, and certainly in World of Warcraft, since day one, the process of leveling has essentially been the same. You find some guy with an exclamation mark above their head, and you go and talk to them. And they've got something for you to do, and you go off and do it. And you bring it back. And they maybe give you something else to do, or they maybe say, go and see that guy over there, or go down that road, there's a pig in a field who's got a quest for you as well. So you go from quest hub to quest hub, leveling up, go from zone to zone, leveling up. Maybe you go into a dungeon now and then as well. But essentially that's it. Now, Warlords of Draenor actually did the leveling, I think, really well, because there were lots of other things to do as well. You had, first of all, bonus objectives. There's not really any difference between bonus and objectives and the stuff you do in a quest. It's just a different way of doing it. You stumble into a zone, oh look, we do this thing. It's almost like automatically picking up a quest, and it doesn't use up any quests in your quest log. But just, the different style of it. Ultimately, it's still doing the same thing. It's still killing a load of stuff, killing everything that moves, and clicking on anything that can be clicked on. It's the same as doing any other quest. But it's just a different way of doing it, which I thought was quite nice. Rares, very different way of doing rares. Rare mobs are usually unique mobs that you find every now and then. Some bugger kills them. It's not going to respawn for a while and move on. They have a loot table. There's usually one item you'd quite like off them. They may or may not drop it. Completely different here. First of all, they respawn pretty quickly. They are designed to be killed if you want to kill them. Next thing is they have an item that they will drop, and that's all there is to it. They will just drop it. So if you know that this mob drops two-handed mace that's useful for you, you kill it, you know it's going to drop it. And, they drop other things as well, and toys and bits and pieces like that. And the dreaded Apexis crystals, and as well as garrison resources. Do I like those? I think they are a nice little distraction. Anything that just takes you from... Because I think what people can get into is, like, the first time you level, people really get into the story. If the storyline is good, you really get into it, you enjoy it. You level up. There's maybe only the very last level, because you're conscious that you're one level away from level cap, where it can drag out a bit, even if you're enjoying the storyline. But generally speaking, you get swept away with it, you enjoy it. If you're not so keen on the storyline, though, it's like... But then if you're not keen on the storylines, maybe you're not keen on World of Warcraft, because I actually think the stories are usually quite engaging. But it's when you're doing it on later characters, you're essentially going through the same things. Because one thing they haven't done, and they didn't do this in MOP either, is they haven't given you a choice of where to go, really. You are starting off in the same zone. Yes, Alliance and Horde have got different zones, but as an Alliance character, in my case, I'm starting off in the same zone, and I'm essentially doing the same quest. There's the odd little quest hub, yes, I could miss out. And later on, there's quite a few, like Taladrar, I could miss out a lot. But there isn't really much of a route. I still have to do essentially the same quest and follow the main quest lines, unless I want to miss out on something essential for my garrison, which of course was a big thing. But more on that in a future one. So it's quite linear. So when you're doing this on alts, as you level those up, it is nice to have little distractions that just sort of break up the leveling, because you've been there, you've done that, you've done the storyline. It's not new to it. It's like reading a book and then reading the same book the next day and then the next day and keep doing that. So it's just nice if there's something unexpected pops up now and then. Followers, another good little distraction. Of course, these are essential for your garrison. I tell you what I quite liked about followers. There's a couple of things. One is that you happen across an area where there is a follower unexpectedly. And so again, a little aid to exploration there. Secondly, it's actually following through the story, because quite a lot of your followers come from NPCs that are giving you quests or involved in the quest lines in a zone, and at the end of the quest line they go, oh, do you know what, I'm going to work for you. And sometimes it's quite fun to see which ones are going to be your followers, try and work out which ones are likely to be your followers and which ones are not. So I quite liked that one. But for a real distraction, what was absolutely awesome in Warlords of Draenor is treasures. Finding treasures. Again, you might just see a little glint in the background. You go, oh, go and have a look at that, see what that's about. Really enjoyed that. And even when you were cheating a bit and you had handy notes, just an add-on, told you where they all are. So you know where they are. Couldn't always get to them. Wasn't always obvious how to get to them. And the zone that I thought was really good at this was Spires of Iraq. In fact, for a number of reasons, Spires of Iraq is actually my favourite zone. And I absolutely love going there for the first time. Granted, I don't hang about, when I'm leveling now with alts after the umpteenth time, because you're just getting to Nagran for the higher item level. But as zones go, that's the one for me. That's my main one. And there's so many times in there where there's treasures and you can see them, but you can't always work out how to get to them. Sometimes to get to them, it's a long way around. It's a lot. All right, now we can just fly to them. But at the time, before that flying came in, it was not easy to find your way to get to some of these ones. And it's a nice little distraction. All right, this one's not getting you a great load of experience. In fact, it's very inefficient as a way of getting experience, but it's a nice distraction. What do we play the game for? We play it for fun, ultimately. All right, you weren't going to be chasing after treasures if you're one of these people who wants to level up in 24 hours or something like that. But for the most of us who can take our time and smell the roses as we go along, I thought it was a really good feature. I would expect them to put in Legion as well, because it's been such a good feature. I don't think I've heard anything negative about it, because ultimately you can take it or leave it, can't you? You didn't need it. You don't need any of the treasures. But they're very useful as well. And a nice distraction. Next thing about leveling that was really, really good, again tied to questing, was the random upgrade of quest rewards. Also applied to followers, but in terms of what is common to different expansions, quest rewards. Because normally you look at most quest rewards, of course, are not going to be upgrades. That's fine. That's fair enough. You don't expect them to be. But often when you look at a quest reward, unless you happen to be an enchanter, you usually just pick the one that's going to vend for the most, don't you? Whereas now we're looking at them, and there's one particular quest I remember in Talador very specifically, where there's like a choice of three quest rewards, and you look at them and you go, well, they're not upgrades, but one of them might be an upgrade if I get a random upgrade to epic. So then you're sort of looking at them, and even if the actual item that you're guaranteed to get isn't an upgrade, maybe a higher item level version of it would be, so you sort of pick it anyway. And again, there's just that anticipation, because you don't actually know what you're going to get. You know what basic item you're going to get, but you don't know what form of it can be randomly upgraded. The same goes for the items that drop off rares. This was amazing, absolutely brilliant. The fact that you had Warforged being carried on into dungeons as well, that you could get these upgraded, was a really good idea. So the random upgrades of items is a really good idea. It does engage you much more with the quest rewards, which is usually just trash, isn't it? They might as well just give you gold. So yeah, I like that as well. It was certainly another unique feature, and again, a good feature, I thought. Heirlooms later on, I mean, this wasn't brought out at the start of Warlords of Draenor, but they've upgraded the heirloom system for going up to level 100 now. They've added a couple of ones in as well. We've got neck, we've got a new trinket, we've got new rings, so we can actually have two rings that have that give us the experience bonus as well. So again, given that there's, I mean, one of the criticisms levelled, of course, at Warlords of Draenor is not a lot to do. Sorry, Blizzard, we ain't finding a lot to do here. So, yeah. It means you're levelling alts, really, doesn't it? Or going off to play another game. They would rather you levelled alts. So this helps you to do that. Again, if you don't want to go through all those storylines again, you can just don your heirlooms and you go through really quickly. I mean, I essentially, the last time I leveled something up and used the heirlooms, I just went around the little quest hubs that had the important bits and pieces like followers and things needed for the main quest lines of each zone, and the things for the garrisons. I didn't have to do many little side quests at all. So yeah, again, it's one of those things, when you've been through the first time, you don't necessarily want to go through it again as slowly as that, so you do it more quickly on an alt. And the best way to do that is with heirlooms. It's a really good system that's been played by Blizzard several expansions ago. Wrath, I think it was, wasn't it? And Yeah, really good. Really good idea. So that's essentially all the new things that came with leveling. Other than that, we can talk about the fact that the quest lines, were they engaging or not, really depends on how much you got into your garrison. Obviously, garrisons were ever present in everything you were sort of doing with the quest lines. So I can imagine some people with the storylines were not as enamoured with them as other people might have been. I did enjoy them though. I thought the storylines were really good. What was amazing, of course, were the cinematics at the end of major quest lines in a number of the zones. For me personally, the one at the, well, it's not the end of Talador really. It's quite early on in Talador, but the Talador main quest line, the Battle for Shattrath, is spectacular. The one for Shadowmoon Valley is amazing. All of them are pretty good. But yeah, the cinematic videos, excellent touch, superb work. And yeah, the whoever was responsible for the Talador one with a big punch up with Blackhand, that was spectacular. So my overall verdict would be leveling has been really successful in Warlords of Draenor. It is something you do need to get right. Again, if you're getting players in who are going to try that, that's the first experience that everyone is going to have. It needs to be a positive experience. It doesn't need to be this. So let's hope that doesn't happen in Legion. But once we got past that, after the first week or so, God, I hated that. But after we got past that, it was much better, and it was a great experience. And I certainly hope that they keep up with the general idea of having other things to do while leveling, which you can take or leave, you don't have to do. And maybe they'll even add in some new, unique ideas of their own, bit of innovation in there. I'd be very much looking forward to that. Okay, so next week there'll be another aspect of Warlords of Draenor to round up, and as I say, I'll keep doing this each week until I'm likely to get into beta, in which case I'll sort of finish them all off. I've got a good margin of about a month or two that I can sort of keep piecing it out or otherwise. So see you later.